Just take a look around you for a second. It's on your phone, your watch, your computer screen. We are literally surrounded by time, measured down to the tiniest fraction of a second, right? We schedule our entire lives by it. We're always trying to save it. And let's be honest, we definitely stress out about it. Our whole world runs on this single, super precise, universal clock. But what if, poof, it all just vanished? No digital displays, no ticking hands on the wall, no morning alarms. How would you possibly know when to wake up, or when to work, or even just when to meet up with a friend? It sounds like chaos, I know, but for most of human history, that was just reality. So how in the world did people build empires and navigate the globe without a single modern clock to their name? You see, our life today is governed by the minute, by absolute precision. But for our ancestors, time didn't tick, it flowed. It moved with the rhythms of nature, the rising sun, the cycle of the moon, the changing seasons. It was a totally different way of experiencing the day, one guided by just looking up and around, not by staring at a schedule. And this is the story of the incredible ingenuity it took to start measuring that flow.
So it makes sense that the very first clock wasn't a machine at all. It was the most obvious and powerful thing in the sky, the sun. Our ancestors noticed a simple, really reliable pattern. As the sun moves across the sky, so do the shadows it casts on the ground.
Way back around 3500 BC, the ancient Egyptians put up these massive stone pillars called obelisks. And you might think they were just monuments, but nope, they were actually colossal working clocks. By just watching the shadow's length and where it fell, they could split the day into two parts, morning and afternoon. And that simple idea eventually evolved into the more precise sundial, which used a little pointer called a gnomon to cast a shadow onto a marked dial. And just like that, the idea of the hour was born.
But there was a huge, glaring problem. What happens when the sun disappears? On a cloudy day, the sundial was totally useless. And even worse, every single night, it was just a piece of stone. If you needed to measure time in the dark for any reason, well, you were completely out of luck. Humanity needed an upgrade. Big time.
And that upgrade came from one of the most basic elements of life, water. Clever engineers in places like ancient Greece, Egypt, and China realized that water could be controlled. You could make it flow in a steady, predictable rhythm. This invention was the Clepsydra, which we know as the water clock. Its genius was in its simplicity. You just let water drip at a constant, steady rate from one marked container into another, and voila, you've got yourself a reliable timer. The best part? It worked indoors, it worked on cloudy days, and most importantly, it worked all through the night.
And believe me, these devices got incredibly sophisticated. Get this, the philosopher Plato is actually said to have created the world's very first alarm clock using one of these. As water in his device filled up to a certain level, it would force all the trapped air out through this tiny tube, creating a super loud whistle. It was designed to jolt his students awake for their early morning lectures. Pretty clever, right?
But even the water clock wasn't perfect. It had its own environmental weaknesses. For instance, in really hot climates, the water could actually evaporate, which would speed up the clock and mess up the time. And in the freezing cold of winter, well, your clock would just turn into a block of ice and stop working entirely. The search for a better way had to continue. So the next big innovations turned away from water and looked towards something completely different: fire. Two incredibly creative solutions popped up, and both were designed to measure time by slowly and predictably burning something away. Over in China and Europe, they developed the candle clock. They would stick a nail into the wax at a specific hour mark, and when the wax melted down to that point, the nail would fall and clang onto a metal dish below. A simple but pretty effective alarm. At the same time, in China and Japan, they perfected the incense clock. A long, thin trail of scented powder would burn at a steady rate, and sometimes they'd even use different scents to mark different hours. Can you imagine knowing it's lunchtime just because the air suddenly smells like sandalwood? Now, all these inventions were really clever, but they were still pretty vulnerable to their environment. Water could spill or freeze, and an open flame was always a bit of a hazard. The next major leap forward was an invention so simple and so elegant that we still recognize it instantly today. The hourglass. It solved a massive problem that none of the previous inventions could handle. You see, its steady flow of sand was completely unaffected by motion. For sailors on a constantly rocking ship, where a water clock would be totally useless, the hourglass was an absolute game changer. It became the most reliable way to measure time at sea, making it completely essential for navigating the vast open oceans. So from the sun to water to fire and finally to sand, when you look back, you can see this clear line of progress. Each new device was basically born directly from the limitations of the one that came before it. Looking at this timeline, you can really trace this incredible journey of human ingenuity over almost 5,000 years. Every single step from that first giant obelisk all the way to the simple hourglass was a constant push towards greater accuracy and greater reliability. And all of it was slowly but surely paving the way for the invention of the very first mechanical clocks in the 14th century.
And what's really crucial to remember is that these devices were never just about scheduling your day. They were deeply woven into the very fabric of society. They dictated the timing for religious rituals, for cultural festivals. They connected people not just to the hour, but to their entire community and to the cosmos itself.
So, ultimately, the next time you glance at your phone for the time, just remember the thousands of years of problem-solving that simple act represents. Our hyper-precise world of nanoseconds and deadlines was literally built on the simple, brilliant foundations of watching a shadow move, listening to water drip, and even smelling the passage of time.
So let me leave you with this thought. If you weren't ruled by the constant ticking of a clock, but by the slow burn of incense or the long arc of a shadow, how would your experience of the world actually change? Do you think time itself would feel different?